One of the hardest things that I have to do as a business owner is tell other team members when they're no longer a good fit to be on the team. And I'm excited today to dig into that with you on this episode of The Imperfect Entrepreneur. So I have a daughter, Liliana, and I have a son, Oliver. And recently, our daughter, Liliana, who's 2 years and 7 months, has been getting a little attitude and like storming off and going to hide. And what I'll do now is like, is Liliana hiding in the bathroom? And then she starts saying no. And is Liliana hiding in the kitchen? And she'll say no. And I was like, is Liliana hiding behind the couch? And then she'll say yes. But it's been a cool way to stay engaged with her, even when she's in a emotional time where she's trying to almost create her own independence and be her own person. So I was really excited about just finding ways to strategize to pull her out of that little funk. So one of the hardest things for me personally is letting team members go when they're no longer a fit for the organization. And we have a really strict process for letting team members know that they're no longer a fit for the organization. And we learned that from our mentors, Cardone Ventures. And, we've had, people in the organization who are not performing. The first thing we do is we give them a written verbal warning. So like, if you're not packaging submittals properly after you've put on your resume, you said you can do submittals, and you put on your resume that you can do RFIs, and you put on your resume that you can do all these things, and then you come into our organization, we train you on how McKinsey does these things, and then 1 week goes by, a month goes by, and we're continuing to get mistakes on packaging up those RFIs and those submittals and those documents that are required from us to our clients. That's a performance issue. And we initially will do a written verbal warning. Give them a written verbal warning, and this is all documented. It's in the company file, right? And we do this so that when it comes time to actually letting somebody go, we're not having to deal with, well, is it because of my age? No, it's not because of your age. Like, you don't remember the conversations that we had talking about your company and the company files where your performance wasn't up to par? Well, is it because of my financial issues? No, it's not because of your financial issues. It's because of the performance in the organization that you're not living up to the standards of. And this hurts the organization. It brings down the organization's capacity to go out there and do big things. And then honestly, it also hurts the organization from a standpoint of leadership. If you're leading somebody and you're telling them what to do and they continue to make mistakes, you start questioning yourself. Am I not telling it the right way? And you'll question yourself if you're a good leader and you want to really help somebody. And that's what I was even doing. Am I not telling it the right way? Is this not, do I need to explain it a different way? But no, there comes a time where someone needs to do the work on themselves. Like I remember when I was working at Skanska, I got laid off from Skanska. Skanska gave up on me. That didn't mean I needed to give up on me. And I didn't. I kept working on myself, kept developing my skills so that I would be irreplaceable. That like the next place that I was working at, whether it was my own business or not, that like I would be so valuable to that organization that I can't be replaced. So because Skanska gave up on me, I didn't give up on me. And that's the mentality that you have to continue to take if you're the person that has been told like you're no longer on the team. Like that company might have given up on you, but you can't give up on you. You got to sharpen your skills. You got to get better. Now, those same people that are working at Skanska, they're submitting resumes to me to come work at my organization. Those same people I was working for there that were in upper level management are now submitting resumes to me to come work with me and my team. Why? Because I continued to sharpen my skills. I continued to work on myself. Even when Skanska said, hey, Oliver, we're no longer going to put any more energy and effort into into you. Now, that was just them telling me, hey, Oliver, you got to put the energy and effort into you. You got to get yourself trained up. You got to get skilled up. You got to get better. And I did. And I'm excited that I did that because we're now where we're at the business, and I'm excited to continue to sharpen my skills, because it's just like what a tree cutter does in the forest. If they go and start cutting a tree with a dull axe, it's gonna take them, weeks to cut down that tree. But if they have a really sharp axe, they can do it in hours. And isn't it smarter to do work in hours versus doing work in weeks? Yes. And I want to do things that are smarter, so I'm going to sharpen my skills. I'm going to get better. I don't want to do things the hard way. I want to do things the smart way to get the most input. I want to be able to put an input and get a big output. Put an input and get a big output. And the only way we can do that is by sharpening our skills. And I'm sharpening my skills. So now back to, letting team members go. So we got the written verbal warning. And then before we even really get to the written verbal warning, I missed a step, is we'll give the person hey, a strict verbal warning. Hey, this is happening. I want to get this cleaned up. You're a person that doesn't do this type of thing. And all of a sudden I'm seeing this type of mistake happen. It's a casual conversation. Hey, let's clean this up. If that doesn't work, then it goes into a written verbal warning. And the reason we want a written verbal warning is because at the end, when we go to terminate someone, we don't want to have them telling us that they didn't know that they weren't doing things properly. They didn't know that, they weren't executing at a high level based off of the organization's expectations. I don't ever want to be in a situation like that again. Because those are all the situations that I used to get myself into and get the organization into. Now it's all up front. Everybody knows exactly where we're at. So after that written verbal warning, we go through a performance improvement plan. And this is the last step. If this performance improvement plan isn't adhered to, we're no longer team members. There's no more second chances. There's no more give me to the end of the year. No, we were super clear about what's expected of you. You're coming into the organization and you're creating additional messes in the organization after we've sat down and talked to you about how we need to proceed in the organization without causing problems. And the problems are still coming up because there's something that's happening that's not being listened to. We're not following the expectations in the organization. So that performance improvement plan that you've given to your team member, and it shows what our commitment is, and our commitment is to provide the resources that are going to be required to execute properly on this work. And then the commitment from the team member is that they're going to do the work. They're going to do it exactly the way it's laid out in our VCEPs, our vision, commitment, execution plans, which is basically a standard operating procedure. They're going to do it exactly that way. And if it's done that way, we have zero problems. There's no issue. Where we get in trouble is when we freestyle and we do things that are not in the standard operating procedures. We do things that we've learned in other places. We do things that are not what McKinsey is expecting of you. That's when we get ourselves in trouble. And then that's when we have to sit down after we've given a performance improvement plan and say, hey, the vision of the company is to create a $100 million company. Do you understand why we're having this conversation today and why your behavior's been detrimental to the company going and being a $100 million company? The person says yes, great, we're all on the same page. We can no longer be team members. The person says no, great. That's the exact reason why we can no longer be team members. because we've gone through multiple performance improvements plans. I've told you we've been super clear about what the expectation in the organization is. We have written documentation signed by me, signed by you, understanding what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be addressed, what's expected of you, and you still violated that, and we can no longer be team members anymore. And there's no more like, can you give me to the end of the year? Like, this is a business. I got people that I'm responsible for. We have 70 employees that I'm responsible for. 70 team members. Like, they got families, they got kids. I can't take all of my focus off of 70 team members to focus on one person because they won't follow the rules. They won't follow the guidelines. And we don't have like all of these strict rules where you can't move. Like, we have guidelines. It's like when you go bumper bowling. Like, there's room to maneuver, but like you're just totally going over the bumpers, you know, and jumping into other lanes, even though we got guidelines. And we can't have that in the organization. So the hardest thing for me to do is tell a team member they can no longer be with the team. But as the owner of the business, I need to step up. I need to have the courage, and I need to be that person for the organization so that we're not duplicating a process that's no longer going to be successful for the organization. And how's it not going to be successful? Well, if you have someone in the organization that's not taking successful actions, and now all of a sudden you start duplicating or allowing that person to work with other team members on the team, now all of a sudden they're duplicating errors all throughout the organization, and it just creates a mess. So you have to just step up as the owner, as the leader, as the entrepreneur, and make the decision that this can no longer happen anymore, and tell the person you've given them time after time after time to, and I said that too many times, you give them the verbal warning, that's just in a conversation, the written verbal warning, and the performance improvement plan. The written verbal warning and the performance improvement plan are signed. They're not adhered to, we can no longer be team members because we're trying to build a legacy, and we need all high-performing team members on building that legacy. We can't deal with people that are not going to be great. They're not going to do the things in the organization that are going to help the organization be successful. So with that, I've gotten a lot of value of stepping into being a leader and understanding that I do have to make the tough decisions of sometimes letting a team member go. And I hope that brings some value to you, and you can use that in your business. Let's go out there and build a legacy. Let's roll.